Hi folks, I'm here to do a review today on one of my favorite firearms, and definitely one of the ones that I've shot more than most of the ones in my collection. This is my Smith&Wesson M&P 1522. This rifle I use primarily as a trainer for my larger rifles, my AR style rifles, and it is a fantastic firearm for that particular purpose. And the biggest reason I'll go into here in a little bit is because the operating system so closely matches an actual AR-15. This particular 1522 is one of the early ones. The way you can tell that is because it does not have a flash suppressor on the barrel. The ones they make nowadays have a flash suppressor to maintain the lines of an actual AR a little bit more closely. I must admit I do like the way it looks better with the flash suppressor on the barrel. But in terms of performance, it makes no difference whatsoever whether the flash suppressor is there or not. The 22 rimfire is not going to produce such a huge ball of flame that you need the flash suppressor to break that up. And it also isn't going to give you so much muzzle rise or anything that you need the compensating effects for that to try to stabilize the barrel. So really the flash suppressor is just a cosmetic piece on these particular firearms. The reason I tell you that, if you come across one of these used, first of all, if you find one used, you're lucky because most of the people that have them aren't going to give them up. But if you do come across one used and it doesn't happen to have the flash suppressor, don't worry that you're somehow going to lose a measure of performance because that's not there. If it's a good price, by all means, purchase this firearm. It will serve you well. Taking a closer look at the 1522, you can actually see the controls and all the features that it has here. It has the rails on the front, so if you want to mount any of the various accoutrements that are made for ARs these days, it doesn't have to be something made specifically for a 1522. Anything that'll fit a standard Picatinny rail on a full-size AR will work with this particular rail. One of the biggest selling points for this particular rifle is the operating system. If you look at these controls, you can see they are exactly the same as a standard AR-15. The selector lever moves in the same places for safe and fire as a standard AR. The bolt release actually works. It'll actually stop the bolt and you release it the same way you do with a standard AR. The trigger, of course, works the same. And the sights, if I can work around here to where you can see them, look the same and give you the same sight picture as your standard AR-15. All of this makes this rifle an excellent trainer. I've had times before with my police department where either we could not get 5.56 ammunition or we didn't have much of it and we didn't want to burn up any more in practice or in training than we had to. And I've actually broken this rifle out and used it for police officers for training because everything matches up so closely with the standard AR-15s. Really, the only thing you don't get when you're firing the 1522 that you do with the 5.56 caliber AR is the recoil. Otherwise, everything looks and feels exactly the same. In fact, things are so interchangeable between this rifle and the standard AR-15 that I've recently swapped out the standard trigger that came with this rifle and replaced it with a Rock River Arms two-stage match trigger. So I have the same exact trigger in here that I have in my match rifle and in my precision rifle. So again, that's just another facet of how closely this particular rifle matches up with the standard AR. You can even interchange some of the parts and something as integral to the operation as the trigger, and it will work just fine in the 1522. The manual of arms for the 1522 also is exactly the same as the standard AR. Simply seat the magazine in the magazine well, cycle the bolt via the charging handle. At that point the rifle is ready to fire. As I said before, all of the controls exactly mirror the AR-15 style rifle. One thing I do have to comment on with the 1522 is the cyclic reliability. When I very first purchased this rifle, I had a lot of cycling problems with it. Generally speaking, I was getting a lot of failures to feed. This apparently was a known problem to Smith&Wesson, and eventually I sent this back to the company. As best I could tell, they replaced the hammer spring, and I couldn't see anything else that was different in the rifle when it came back than when I sent it in. Since that time, though, this rifle has not missed a beat. In fact, it's become kind of a experiment that I've been running for a while to see how dirty I can get this thing before it'll finally start to choke. At this point, I'm not sure even how many thousands of rounds I've run through it since the last time I cleaned it. But sooner or later, I expect to have a problem. But so far, it keeps running. I have read accounts that other people still occasionally have malfunctions with their 1522s, and that may well be the case. As with any rimfire, and any semi-automatic for that matter, these rifles are completely dependent upon their ammunition to give them the energy to cycle the action. If you get a bad round, and with 22, particularly bulk pack 22, that's always a possibility, you're going to see some cycling problems. But at least with mine, it has run just fine for probably the last 3 or 4 years. It's probably been since I sent this back to Smith&Wesson. And again, it has been tip-top reliable with everything I've run through it. Okay, what I'm going to do is load everything up, head out to the range with the 1522, and we're going to put it through its paces. I've done, since I switched the trigger, just a little bit of function testing with it to make sure that it's going to cycle okay, and to this point I've not had any problems with it. But we'll take it out to the range, we'll load it up, and we'll run quite a few rounds through, and we'll see how it does today.